عزیزو کیا غضب آیا، نقی جگ سے اٹھا افسوس، عزیزو کیا غضب آیا، نقی جگ سے اٹھا افسوس، شہنشاہ دو عالم وہ اٹھا جگ سے ہزار افسوس، نبی مرقاد میں روتے ہیں، علی جنت سے آئے ہیں، نبی مرقاد میں روتے ہیں، علی جنت سے آئے ہیں، لے سر فاطمہ پوتے کو رونے یہاں پہ آئی ہیں، یوں رو کری لاشیں پدر پہ کہتے ہیں ہر بار، یوں رو کری لاشیں پدر پہ کہتے ہیں ہر بار، ہوا بن باپ کا افسوس، کروں کیا میں جگر افغان، میرے بابا یہ کیسی نیند میں سوئے، میرے بابا یہ کیسی نیند میں سوئے، میں روتا ہوں کھڑا یہاں پہ، تسلی اٹھ کے دے دی جو، عزیزو کیا غضب آیا، نقی جگ سے اٹھا افسوس۔
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المستحدون، الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا، سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد، اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين صاحب العصر والزمان خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان ولعن الله أعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قال الله وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا وإن الله لمع المحسنين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. We send our condolences to the Imam of our time and to all of you, my sisters and my brothers in Edmonton, on the Shahadat of our 10th Imam, Imam Al-Hadi alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that tawfiq, inspire us to be one of his true Shi'as, follow his path, understand the legacy he left behind for us. Our 10th Imam was born in the year 212 after Hijrah. Some say 214, but 212 is the more mashhur riwayat. And he was poisoned by Mu'taz in 254 AH. He lived a life of 42 years, of which close to 36 years of that he was an Imam. And born in Medina, buried in Samarra. As many of you know, he was part of the era of the Imams, of the young Imam era, I should say. That's actually better wording. The portion of Imamat that we have of very young Imams. I mentioned this to all of you during our 5th Imam suggestion a few days ago, where I said that, you know, if we break down a little bit of the 12 Imams in different eras, the first 4 Imams were in just survival mode, very difficult circumstances, somehow trying to spread the deen under, you know, extremely difficult situations. The 5th and 6th Imam, that was the golden age of Islam, where, you know, open door policy, the Hawza Ilmiya of our 5th and 6th Imam were open. And then you get into the Bani Abbasid era, the 7th, the 8th Imam, of imprisonment, of separating the Imams from the Shi'as. And then the 9th and the 10th and really the 11th and 12th Imam, the last 4 Imams, was the era of young Imams. Okay, Imam Jawad, the father of the Imam that we're here tonight to commemorate, some say were 8, 9 years old. Imam Hadi himself was only 6 when he was made an Imam. As you know, the youngest Imam to be made an Imam was our own Imam, a 12th Imam being, you know, an Imam at the age of 5. And this was historical for several reasons. Number one was the fact that it was a test for the Shi'as. It's one thing where you believe in an Imam who is in his 30s or in his 40s. But now to be told to believe in an Imam who's under 10 years of age. You haven't seen much of his life. Even if, you know, you're a little bit older and you're asked to believe in an Imam who's a little bit younger than you, in his mid-20s, in his early 20s. Okay, Imam Sajjad on the day of Ashura, when he was given that imamat, was in his 20s. But you've seen enough of his life to know this man is a man of God. But here you have an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old who was kept away for most of his life. I mean, the Shias, the companions, the Ashab back then, they were really tested. That, you know, you're asking me now to follow, you know, this 8-year-old son of yours, to be my Imam, my Hujjat of Allah, to carve my path into the Akhirat. It wasn't easy. On top of that, it was also, you know, to the enemies, to the Abbasids and the Umayyads, more or less the Abbasids, the Bani Abbasids, it was to them, they thought, a golden opportunity to dismantle, destroy, and once and for all finish this entire movement of the Ahlul Bayt and the Shia movement. That, you know, we have theologians, we have academics, we have philosophers, that, you know, we would set up debates so we could easily now show the public this 9-year-old, this 6-year-old doesn't know what he's talking about, and therefore true Islam belongs to us, the Khulafa. And so one area that, and I don't want to go down this route too much, in the ninth Imam and the 10th Imam's life, were this set up by the Khalifa at the time for debates, for academic discussions between a hand-chosen individual. Some say, Yahya ibn Aksam, for example, was a very famous name in history. He was a theologian. He was a well-read individual. He was, a philosopher, and he was the one individual who was brought forward to debate both the 9th and the 10th Imam, the father and son connection, albeit in different times in history, of course. And both times he was completely embarrassed, and to the point where he says, "Look, don't ask me again. This is not a family that is ordinary like you and I. This is a family of God." Okay? So these young imams had, a specific role. On top of that, if I can add a third point about the importance of a young imam, that is the revival of the true idea of what's called the ilm al-ladunni. If you've done any reading on Islamic theology, taking any classes on imamat, why do we believe in imams as Shias, what are the the qualities of an imam, you'll know that one of the things that the imam has to have, besides infallibility, besides courage, is something called the ilm ladunni. Okay, knowledge of the heavens and the earth. Okay, again, it's one thing for the enemy to sit there and claim that, fine, if for example someone like Imam Ali, alayhi salatu wasalam, has knowledge of the heavens and the earth, that he's sitting there in front of the public, Saluni, Saluni, ask me, right? People are asking him now, Ali, how do you have the answers to every question that someone asks, right? So the enemy would always resort to the idea, well, this is a man who sat beside the Holy Prophet day in and day out, okay? Who would have, private classes with him, who spent, the majority of his years learning beside the Holy Prophet. If I had access to that, I'd have the exact same knowledge that Ali would have. And they would do that for all of the first 8 Imams. And then along comes the 9th and 10th Imam. 9, 6 years old, 8 years old, something, whatever it is. It's younger than 10 years old. Now you can't say, oh, this young individual spent his entire life now beside his father now, having all these books that's passed down by the Prophet. Again, if we had that kind of library, we would be also, a very learned family like they are. But you can't say that for a 6-year-old or 9-year-old. So that's why, the Khalifa would sit there and say, oh, this is my golden opportunity. To the point now where, like I said, debates were set up. Questions were fired at these young imams, and they gave answers that would baffle not only their opponents, but the people who, of course, were watching as well. So these young imams, the 9th, the 10th, even the 11th Imam, he was shaheed at the age of 25. But our 12th Imam, of course, they unfortunately, and I say this, I'm sorry, they're not the ones that are the most celebrated. They're not the ones that are that are the most commemorated, right? And yet they hold a very special status in the movement of Islam. So these are not ordinary commemorations. They're not ordinary celebrations. That's why these dates are very, very important in this virtual world. I ask all of you to make it a point to make sure that your kids and yourselves, you do dedicate some time to our 10th Imam. Studying a little bit about his history. There's lots of kids videos now online, very well done about our Imams. Just spend a little bit of time now and give it its due respect. What I wanted to do today was I wanted to examine one hadith by our 10th Imam. I feel, maybe I'm wrong, that there is no better way to commemorate the Imam Shahadat. Excuse me. There is no better way to commemorate the Imam Shahadat than to study his words and try to apply it. Just one of his words. This was an Imam that was very unique in the sense that he had given He had been given a little bit of time to return back to Medina, as you know, historically, and I don't want to go down a very dry historical route just yet. I mean, I don't want to make it in the entire speech historical, but one of the ways that the Bani Abbasids were different in terms of their enmity towards the Imams that the Bani Umayyads weren't, that they believed in divide and conquer, okay? If you take the Imam physically away from the Shias will falter. Without their Imam physically there, there's no point, right? Out of sight, out of mind. That's what they're hoping for. Okay? So Imam Kazim was brought to Baghdad. Imam Raza was brought to Mashhad, right? Imam Hadi now was brought to Samara eventually. Then, brought to Baghdad initially, brought back to, given this freedom to go back to Medina now for a good decade, and then he was brought back to Samara, where of course he was eventually poisoned and buried. But that opportunity he had in Medina, where there really wasn't any sort of restrictions, he really took advantage of that opportunity. We have many du'as, we have many supplications, we have many ziyarat that are left behind by our 10th Imam. This very famous Ziyarat al-Jami'a Kabira is one that is, left behind by our 10th Imam. Only because he had the opportunity that sometimes the other Imams simply didn't have. So there are several treasures left behind by this Imam that we are forever grateful for. This one hadith that I want to mention today is very, very important. He says that faith resides in the hearts, is supported by actions, and announced by the tongue. Okay? These might be simple words for all of you, maybe for me. But when we examine a lot of how we're seeing the way faith is seen today, how we're seeing the way that the deen is seen today inside of our youth now, then these things have to be revisited, renewed, once again kind of, reintroduced into the hearts of our youth. The first section of this hadith where he says that faith belongs inside the hearts, okay, is then supported by action. And then he is, and then that faith, of course, is, strengthened, fortified, depending on the transition of the Arabic, by the tongue. Okay? This tells me that the entire faith is a three-step process that requires three different dimensions of us. Okay? This is where I really want my youth especially to understand what's being said here. And don't mind me, I've just been a little bit drained and exhausted for the past couple of days. And I'm just trying to battle through that right now, and so don't mind me if my typical energy is not as high. I'm just trying to get through a little bit of it's been a draining couple of days. Khair, inshallah, not that people in Edmonton want to hear about my draining days, but that's okay. We're family now, right? So the initial point of the hadith is a very important one. The point is that faith and true Islam resides in three different levels inside the human being. If you want to be considered to be spiritual, to be faithful, to be Islamic, it's not just the fact that the heart believes in a higher power. This whole discussion on mind, body, and soul, the Western psychology and Western philosophy and, Western spirituality now is starting to get the hang of, is really an Islamic process, perspective that it introduced, thousands of years ago. But I don't think our youth are quite still sold on it. The reason why I say that, because there are many people, many young guys who come to me and tell me, look, Maulana, with all due respect, I believe in God. I just don't feel the need to have to live every ounce of my life for that belief. And that's where we don't understand that faith is not just a spiritual thing. Faith is a spirit, mind, and body thing. Meaning what? That, and this is a general philosophical discussion. where the physical existence of our own existence, our body now, very much affects everything from our emotion to our spirit. So sometimes, and most times, it's an external to an internal reality. What I'm saying is that sometimes what we experience with our physical body, what we see, what we hear, what we taste, what we smell, right? All of that has an immense impact on our soul. For us to deny that, it doesn't make any sense, right? So when Islam talks about the nitty-gritty details of entering the mosque with a certain foot, exiting the washroom with a certain foot, okay? I don't know, cutting your nails on a certain day of the week, having a certain length of a beard, tying your hijab a certain way, for example, certain colors to wear, certain, I don't know, sizes to wear. All these things are there. We think, wow, this is really kind of like it's I don't understand. Why am I being dictated to how I should now believe in my God? If I want to do hot yoga once a day, then that should replace the 5 times a day of salat. It is for me mindful. It is for me spiritual. I go into this Zen moment. I have this calming of the soul, the calming of the heart. I remember God during my yoga or during my meditation, for example. Why do I need to go up 1 ruku, 2 sujood, qunut, qiyam, tashahhud? Why do I need to do that? I intermittent fast almost every single day. I do the 16 and 8 model. Why do I need to now fast from sunrise to sunset, or from Fajr to Maghrib, in the month of Ramadan? I'm already doing that. Meaning, why am I being dictated to how I should worship God? It's between me and my heart. And while there are 1,000 answers for that, one of them that I want to focus on is, of course, this hadith where he says, look, it's not just about the state of your heart. God's in my heart. No, God has to be in your physical world as well. You have to look to part to feel the part. Think about it. Something very simple, okay? Imam Ali, alayhi salatu wasalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He says that when you look physically good, okay, it takes away your worry and your anxiety. Hadith, okay? You think, wait a second, what's that connection between? I'm not saying it's the only overnight pill. I'm not saying that if you are somebody who's riddled with anxiety, just put on, a nice suit and you'll be fine. No, of course not. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that it does have a part to play. That when we look good, we feel good, guys. I mean, that's very, very common. There's nothing debatable, right? We dress up, we look good, we shower, we kind of, line up the beard, we accessorize, and we look good, and we, and make, lots of pictures at weddings and selfies during jashans and this and that. We come decked out, and that's great. It should be that way. For certain events, of course. Then the feeling that we have is different, as opposed to, let's say, for example, that I'm walking around the house with my pajamas on, haven't combed my hair, barely washed my face, right? I've been wearing the same clothes since the morning I got up. I went all day in those clothes. I slept in those clothes. I woke up the next morning in the same clothes. That feeling I have doesn't even match up a little bit to the feeling I had when I was decked out and dressed up like a boss, right? So obviously the physical realm has an immense effect on the spiritual realm. I'll talk about trauma. I don't mean to be negative. Trauma is sometimes in a physical reality. You hear someone tell you that you amount to nothing. You'll hear someone talk down to you. You'll hear the bullying, the name calling, the ridiculing, right? Or if the trauma is physical, God forbid, you'll feel the physical pain. Be it when you're younger or you're a little bit older. But that trauma, that physicalness is now gone. The scars have healed. The person who is responsible for the verbal attacks is no longer in your life, but the trauma remains. Later on, decades later, it rears its ugly head in different avenues. You're not confident in your own ability, right? You end up, doubting your parenting skills. You end up doubting your marriage skills. You can't hold a job. Every single time somebody scolds you or somebody calls you out, you just buckle down and you go into a corner, right? And you wonder why that is. And then when someone comes and breaks down the wall, they realize it all goes back to that trauma that you experienced when you were younger. The trauma is physical, but it has indented itself into your spirits. Let's go happy a little bit. You go, and let's say, for example, you go on this road trip. Like I remember I drove up the coast in California, route number 1 from, I think it was from, from San Francisco to, down south towards LA. It's a little bit of a long drive, but it was along the coast of the Pacific Ocean. It was beautiful. It was an amazing drive. And, the calmness my heart physically felt, I felt serene. My breathing was normal. My heart was at a resting rate, right? Not because of anything else, but because of what my eyes saw. My eyes are watching the ocean. My eyes are watching the palm trees blow. My eyes are watching this cooling effect of the blue water as far as I could see. And that physical experience now has an immense and direct impact, mind you, on my spirit and soul. So now when Islam talks about watching what you watch, be careful what you listen to. Don't eat everything. Don't say everything. Right? Wear certain colors. A lot of my youth ask me, why do I have to wear black during Muharram and Safar? Why can't I walk in wearing tie-dye or hot pink on the day of Ashura? What's the big deal? There's no shari'i, haram and halal. Yeah, you'll get a couple of looks. You might even get some auntie uncle say, look, go and change your shirt. What's wrong with you? And we'll think, oh, culture. It's not culture. It's not culture. When you are wearing that color, you're telling your spirit and soul that I'm grieving. So you walk into the majlis of Abu Abdullah already now ready to grieve and cry for Imam Hussein. Hadith says if you can't cry for Imam Hussein, make the face of crying. Let your physical existence affect now your soul and your spirit. There's a direct impact now. Okay, so yes, now you take one notch higher. The way we look, the way we present ourselves, right? Covering ourselves, wearing certain clothes, acting a certain way, saying certain things are all what? In the physical realm. But if we believe it stops at the physical, it doesn't. It enters and penetrates past the mind and into the heart, where what? Where that faith resides. Okay, so it is vital that we understand that yes, Islam is a complete part and parcel of everything from mind and body to spirit. That's why we have small things, like the Prophet used to look at the mirror or a reflection before he left the house every single day. It's mustahab for men to comb their beards between salats. That's why sometimes you'll find small combs inside the janamazes of some of our ulama, right? Certain colors. Black is makruh to wear outside of mourning days. Why? It has an impact, right? White is one of the more favorable colors inside of Islam. Why? It has an impact on your soul. Right? These are not things that are just made up just like that without any sort of wisdom behind them. Right? I say that because, again, we go back to what I talk about a lot. Spiritual but not religious. SBNR. Spiritual but not religious. Mulana, look, I believe in a higher power. I'm spiritual, but I'm not going to prescribe and believe in this organized religion stuff. It's a little bit too much for me. I will worship God the way I want to worship God. I will do it the way I want to do it. He's inside my heart, right? It's a very private and personal thing. And that's where the fallacy happens, is that we think that it's just between me, God, and my heart. It's not. It's how you present yourself, how you look, how you smell, how what colors you wear, the things that you say. Imam Ali talks about the tongue. The ulama talk about the fact that 30 plus sins are attributed to this one tongue of ours. Hadith says there are certain people that will be dragged into the hellfire with their tongues. I mean, God forbid any of us become that person. The moment that we open our mouth, people are scared about what's going to come out of their mouth. The moment that you see Asad is typing ... inside my WhatsApp group or my Telegram or my Signal or my whatever group I have nowadays, if all of that is there, I think, oh my God, what's he going to say? And he keeps typing. If I call someone and they see my name on their phone, we're like, oh, do I really want to pick up this phone right now? Yeah, I'm just going to decline that and put that down. Because I really am scared. I mean, there's a pit in my stomach every time I see that name on my phone. God forbid. May God protect us from being that person for others. Imam Ali says the tongue, he says, jirmuhu saghiru jurmuhu thaqilu. Its jirm, its size, its mass, it's small. not a very big tongue. It's a small piece of flesh inside of our mouth. But it's jurm, it's crime, it's thaqil. Very, very, very heavy. Very, very heavy. Physical wounds come and go. They scab, they scar, then they leave. How many times did I scrape my knees and scrape my hands and, scrape my elbows growing up playing this sport and that sport? Now none of that is there. But sometimes the verbal wounds. Sometimes I still remember the things people said to me in grade 6, grade 5, grade 7, echoes in my head. Right? Those things, forget scarring. They actually, they become a staple inside of us for many, many years. And they dictate to us our behavior a little bit down the road. That's why I always say this, I had a majlis in Muharram in the first 10 days. I talked about the fact that as parents, we have to be very careful how we speak to our children. Very careful how we speak to our children. Especially when they're younger, to destroy them, to take their dignity and their respect, self-respect, and drag it through the mud. Nobody gave you that right. That does not come. It's not included in the package of parenting. Absolutely raise your kid. Absolutely set boundaries, set limits, discipline them. You're the authority figure. No doubt about that. You are the wali inside the house as parents. Absolutely. But it gives you no right. Gives me no right. I have 3 kids. Gives me no right to sit there and tell the person, you are this, you are that, you'll amount to nothing. What is wrong with you? Why is everyone else like this way and you're this way? What did I do that God gave me a child like you? These things aren't said. They are said. Sometimes they're said to me. Sometimes I have parents who will drag their kids to me, after a majlis or after a speech and say, Malana, can you please tell this, this so-and-so kid of mine to make sure that he doesn't disrespect me, to make sure that he prays Salat on time, and this and that, and he's just embarrassing the child in front of me. I'm looking at him, he looks destroyed. Tough love, Malana, that's how we were raised, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying it comes from a very vindictive or some enmity you have for your child. Obviously, you're trying to bring out the best. And sometimes kids react to you being stern and me setting limits. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is watch the tongue. That's it. Because all they're hearing, that half an hour rant of yours, was not, clean your room, do your homework, pray Salat. It's the fact that mommy and daddy said, I'll do this, I'll become this. They use this word, for example. And we use the words freely because they were used freely on us. And we forget the fact how it made us feel. Anyways, my point is that, faith is an external to internal movement. How you present yourself to others, yes, and others are included in your personal faith. And how you present yourself to yourself is important. We have to have some self-respect in how we present ourselves. We have to know that when I leave the house, even when I wake up in the morning and I have people downstairs waiting for me, my parents, my siblings, my spouse, my children, somebody, I should now come downstairs, small things, right? Have my face washed with soap, combing my hair, brushing my teeth, right? Maybe, putting on, changing my clothes, even though I know that I'm not going anywhere in this pandemic, I'm at home, but still, right? It presents like someone who cares about themselves, who has respect for themselves, who loves themselves. When you end up having respect for yourself, people end up having respect for you. When you don't care about how you look, people won't care about you either. Right? When you're very careful of the words you use, out of your mouth, and there are people that will also be very careful with how they speak to you as well. I find that people who I know there are people who are very, very quiet, people who are very wise in their words, people who there are people who who speak very seldomly, but when they speak, it's very powerful. And those people who go on and speak for half an hour, man, and nothing comes out of their mouth that's of any benefit. I find when I address or talk to those people who are very careful in their words, I also become very careful in their words. If they're quiet, I'm quiet. If they're exhibiting wisdom, I try to be Mr. Wise, right? But that's just how it is. Because always remember one thing, and then we'll move towards Masad, is that when you say something, It leaves your mouth. It's now left your mouth. You can't put it back in your mouth, number one. Number two is that you now become a slave of those words. So long as those words were inside of your mouth, you were the owner. And those words were the slave. You chose when to release those words. You were in complete control. Now, you said something. It was gone. It was gone. You can't put it back in your mouth. Now you become the slave, and wherever those words are causing damage, you have to go and put out the fire. And nowadays, in text, and nowadays when you're typing, let's say in chat, for example, it's all screenshots. It's all screenshots. Which is even more wise to be very, very careful how we express ourselves, what we say. Never respond angry. Never put anything in writing, for example. Right? All these groups that we're part of, where now there's a lashing out, there's this and that. Right? That's always bound to come back and haunt you. Imam Hadi alayhi salam says faith is inside the heart, no doubt. Supported by your actions, fortified by your tongue, strengthened by your tongue. A complete encompassing package of faith. Shaitan's faith, he had faith in his heart. Yes, of course. You have to have that much faith in your heart to worship Allah before Adam for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. He was revered by the jinn and the angels. He was the ta'us, they say in Farsi, the peacock, the most beautiful slave of Allah, or worshipper, I should say, of Allah before the creation of Adam, before this whole khilafat happened. He was revered and respected. Where was that? In the hearts. When it came time for action, when it came time for that faith now to reach the external, for him now to prostrate in front of Adam, nowhere to be found. And God's reaction to Shaitan tells me that God doesn't want your faith to only reside in the heart. It has to be released from the heart and begin to dictate your actions in the physical world. Everything from how you walk and talk, to what you wear, to how you smell, to what you eat, to what you watch, to what you listen to what you say. All of it is encompassing. There are people who, mashallah, don't miss one salat, don't miss one fast, have gone to multiple hajj. But when they open their mouth, people are scared. The worst akhlaq. Always angry, snapping at people, cutting somebody off, holier than thou, judgmental. But hey man, they have this nice, beautiful nishani of sajda on their forehead, beautiful white beard, recite Dua Kumail. If there's no alim, let's say, he can put together half an hour speech, let's say, for example. He's our go-to. But outside of all of that, he's a tyrant. And this one simple line by Imam Hadi tells us the complete picture of the deen. It's a treasure, guys. It's a treasure. And we have to always remember that faith is not just to be believed in. It has a physical, exoteric, external, zahiri dimension to it. And yeah, you have to look the parts, also not only, believe in the part as well. And these are the types of teachings from our Imams that were a source of a threat for many of the Khulafa who are trying to now, oppress the people, rule over them, mind control, brainwash them, not allow them to be empowered, not allow them to have, an intellectual moment, not reviving the conscious. No, keep them ignorant, keep them busy, right? Keep them scared. You can do whatever you want with them. And then when the Khulafa knew that no matter what I threw at this Imam, he would not stop his mission, their final desperate tactic was to martyr them. Imam Hadi alayhi salatu wasalam was given poison. In Samara. And all of you should know, and you do know, the poison given to the Imams was devastating poison, destroying the internal organs, causing one to fall in and out of consciousness, changing the color of the skin of the individual. By the time that Imam Ali ﷺ, 3 days after the strike of Ibn Muljim, by that moment when now the doctor is saying that Ali, you don't have much time left, by then the band-aid that was there now to stop the bleeding had turned yellow from the blood, to the point where the skin color of Ali was so yellow, the bandage and his skin would be blended together. Imam Mujtaba is spitting up portions of his organs now in front of his siblings. That poison was given to Imam Hadi. The funeral he received in Samara was historic. There was a procession that was long. Many people of Samara came to respect Imam Hadi. His son Imam Askari alayhi salam came and gave him ghusl, wrapped his body, buried him in Samara. Utmost respect. And while I send my condolences to Imam Askari today on the passing of his father, I'd also say to the 11th Imam that, Mawla, you were very khush nasib, Mawla. You were very lucky, Mawla, that you were there now to bury. You were there now to bury your son. You were there now to bury your father. You were there to wash your father. You were there now with utmost respect now to dig his grave and place him in the grave. There was nobody there that was lashing you. There was nobody there that was stopping you. Now come to Karbala and ask the heart of Imam Sajjad, our fourth Imam, Bimari Karbala, on the day of Ashura now. Umar ibn Saad now is about to take this qafala now through the Shahadat, through the Maidan of Karbala towards Kufa and Sham. There comes a moment now where Imam Sajjad and Bibi Zainab are seeing body after body, mayat after mayat, shaheed after shaheed, and there comes a moment now when they slowly approach the trampled body of his father, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Zainab looks towards Imam Sajjad. Sajjad's eyes are fixed on Imam Hussein's body. Can you imagine for a moment seeing your father lying there with a trampled body, headless, the clothes taken off his back, a finger missing? It would be a devastating view for all of us. Imam Sajjad couldn't take it. The books say that he came off the horse. He went and sat at the body of his father, began to cry, began to mourn. Bibi Zainab realizes something's going to happen to him. She also comes down, goes towards Imam Sajjad. Imam Sajjad, let's go. It's time to go towards Kufa and Sham. Sajjad looks up to Zainab, tears rolling down his face. Puppy Amal, come with you to Kufa and Sham. Just answer me one question. Have you ever heard of a son leaving his father unburied the way I am leaving my father unburied on the plains of Karbala? سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept this qaleel ibadat, inshaAllah. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to give us that tawfiq, inshaAllah, to act on the words of Imam Hadi. We ask you, Allah, to weaken the hands of the enemies of humanity, to strengthen the mustaza'afin and the oppressed wherever you go. We ask you, Allah, anyone now, our equals in humanity, our sisters and brothers in faith, if anyone now has been riddled with this coronavirus, we ask you, Allah, to grant them shifa, inshaAllah, and ultimately now allow us to stand beside the Imam when he comes. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
गूंजी फरियाद जिब्रील की, गूंजी फरियाद जिब्रील की, हाय मौला अली-उन-नक़ी, हाय मौला Ali-un-Naqi,
हाय मौला Ali-un-Naqi ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi
کعبہ حق ہوا مزمحل
کعبہ حق ہوا مزمحل
زر قاتل سے پارا ہے دل
زہر قاتل سے پارا ہے دل
غم کی ہر سو گٹا چھا گئی غم کی ہر سو گٹا چھا گئی
ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi
انبیاء و ملک رو پڑے
انبیاء و ملک رو پڑے
وہاں پڑھتے ہیں چھوٹے بڑے
وہاں پڑھتے ہیں چھوٹے بڑے
ہر طرف آج ہے بے کلی ہر طرف آج ہے بے کلی
ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi
کرسیوں کا بڑا ہے ہجوم
کرسیوں کا بڑھا ہے ہجوم
عرش سے آئے شمس و نجوم
عرش سے آئے شمس و نجوم
خون میں غرق ہے چاندنی خون میں غرق ہے چاندنی
ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi
شخصیت ایسی رخصت ہوگی
شخصیت ایسی رخصت ہوئی
آج اس کی شہادت ہوگی
آج اس کی شہادت ہوئی
جس کی ٹھوکر دے گئے زندگی جس کی ٹھوکر دے گئے زندگی
ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi
دور کے نور کا آسمان ان میں ڈوب کر ہے
ان میں ڈوب کر ہے نہال
اور ظلمت بکھرنے لگی اور ظلمت بکھرنے لگی
ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi
تجھ کو معتز بتا کیا ملا
معتز بتا کیا ملا
غیر مولا کو کیوں دے دیا
زہر مولا کو کیوں دے دیا
ہم سے کیوں ہر خوشی چھین لی ہم سے کیوں ہر خوشی چھین لی
ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi
سب پہ حامد عطا فرض ہے
سب پہ حامد عطا فرض ہے
سب پہ مولا کا ہم قرض ہے
سب پہ مولا کا ہم قرض ہے
بولو اشفاق رو کر یہی بولو اشفاق رو کر یہی
ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi
ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi ہائے مولا علی-un-Naqi